Ambassador Sarah Chun walked through the crystal corridors of the Galactic Council building. Her footsteps echoed softly against walls that seemed to glow with their own light. She had been making this walk for 10 years now, but the beauty of the place still amazed her. The building floated in space between 3 star systems. It was a symbol of what different species could build together. Ships from hundreds of worlds came and went like colorful birds. Each one carried delegates from species so different that some needed special suits just to breathe the same air. Sarah stopped at a window and looked out at the busy traffic. 50 years ago, humans had no idea that any of this existed. Earth was alone, or so they thought. Then the Zerani found them. She remembered the stories her grandmother told about first contact. The Zerani ship had appeared near Mars on a Tuesday morning in 2157. It was beautiful and peaceful, like everything the Zerani did. They came with gifts of knowledge and an invitation to join something bigger than Earth had ever imagined. "The galaxy has been waiting for you," the Zerani ambassador had said. "Every species brings something special. We want to learn what humans can teach us." Sarah smiled at the memory. Humans had taught the galaxy plenty over the past 50 years. They solved problems that had puzzled alien scientists for centuries. They helped different species talk to each other when old hatred got in the way. They built things that worked better than anyone expected. The Galactic Council had 847 member species. Most have been exploring space for millions of years. Compared to them, humans were babies. Earth had only been sending ships to other planets for 200 years. Humans had only been smart enough to build cities for maybe 200,000 years. To the older species, that was like yesterday. But humans learned fast. Too fast, some aliens whispered. Sarah's wrist device buzzed. Time for the morning meeting. She walked toward the inner circle chamber where the most important decisions were made. Only 50 species had seats in the inner circle. Earth had earned its place by helping solve the Kethra trade war and designing the new jump gate system that made travel between distant worlds much faster. The inner circle chamber was huge. The ceiling showed a map of the galaxy with all the member worlds marked as tiny lights. Sarah took her seat between the Zerani delegate and the representative from the Clockwork Mines, a species that had replaced most of their bodies with machines long ago. "Good morning, Ambassador Chun," said Kelvari, the Zerani delegate. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. "How are your people adapting to the new mining restrictions?" Sarah kept her smile friendly. "We understand the need for environmental protection. Human mining companies have already started using the council-approved methods." It was a polite lie. The new restrictions made mining so slow and expensive that human colonies were struggling. But complaining would make humans look ungrateful. The council had given them so much. Advanced medicine that ended most diseases. Ships that could cross the galaxy in days instead of years. Technology that made life easier and better. The price was following council rules. Lots of rules. Humans could not explore certain areas of space without permission. They could not research dangerous technologies like artificial intelligence or quantum weapons. They could not share their discoveries with non-council species. They could not build more than a certain number of ships each year. Each rule made sense by itself. The galaxy was a dangerous place. Young species needed guidance to avoid making terrible mistakes. The Council had seen civilizations destroy themselves with weapons too powerful to control. They had watched planets die because species changed their environments too fast. "The morning agenda is quite full," announced Elder Thane, a member of the Stone Fathers. His species had been traveling between stars since before Earth's sun was born. "We must discuss the new Cultural Protection Act." Sarah had read about this proposal. It would require all species under 1 million years old to get permission before changing their traditional ways of life. The idea worried her. Humans changed constantly. It was what they did best. During the debate, Sarah listened to speech after speech about protecting younger species from harmful influences. The older species talked about humans like they were children playing with dangerous toys. "The rapid changes in human society concern us," said Vazik of the Eternal Throne. His species was so old that their exact age was not known. In just 50 years, they have transformed their worlds completely. This pace of change is unprecedented and potentially dangerous. Sarah wanted to argue, but she held her tongue. Humans had learned that speaking up too much made the older species nervous. Better to smile and nod and work quietly to make things better. After the meeting, Sarah met with Captain Williams, head of Human Space Defense. They walked in one of the station's gardens, where plants from 1,000 worlds grew together in impossible beauty. "The restrictions are getting tighter," Williams said quietly. "My people are asking questions I cannot answer." "What kind of questions?" "Why we need permission to upgrade our own ships. Why we cannot explore the dark regions past Sector 7. Why council inspectors want to examine our military academies." Williams stopped walking and looked at Sarah. "They are treating us like we cannot be trusted." Sarah had noticed the same thing. In the early years, the council had welcomed human ideas and energy. Now they seemed more interested in controlling both. "Maybe we grew too fast," Sarah said. "Maybe they need time to get used to us. Or maybe they never intended to treat us as equals." That night, Sarah sat in her quarters, looking at reports from human colonies. The news was good and bad. Human settlements were thriving. Population was growing. New technologies were being developed every day. But the council restrictions were slowing everything down. She opened a message from Earth. Her niece had just started college, studying xenobiology. The girl wanted to work on alien diseases, but the council had banned humans from that research. Too dangerous for a young species, they said. Sarah closed the message and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were patrolling the borders of council space. Human scientists were working on approved projects only. Human children were learning to see their species as junior members of a galactic community that would always see them as children. For 50 years, humans had played by the rules. They had been good citizens, helpful neighbors, reliable allies. But Sarah was starting to wonder if good behavior was enough. The older species seemed to think that humans would always need guidance, always need watching, always need control. Maybe it was time to find out if they were right. The emergency session alarm woke Sarah Chan at 3 in the morning, ship time. She had been dreaming about Earth, about walking through the forests of her childhood. The harsh sound pulled her back to the reality of the council station. She dressed quickly and hurried to the inner circle chamber. Other delegates were arriving too, looking confused and worried. Emergency sessions were rare. The last one had been called during the Nebula Wars, 20 years ago. Elder Vazik stood at the center of the chamber. His ancient form seemed to glow with pale light. Behind him, a holographic display showed the council seal. 847 species bound together in perfect harmony. "Fellow beings," Vazik began, his voice carrying the weight of eons. "Today we address a growing concern that threatens the stability of our galactic community." Sarah felt her stomach tighten. She had a bad feeling about this. "The Civilization Maturation Directive," Vazik continued, "represents our commitment to responsible growth and peaceful development. Too often, we have watched young species stumble into darkness because they lacked proper guidance." The display changed to show statistics and charts. Sarah saw human colonies marked in red, along with 12 other species. All of them were labeled as requiring enhanced oversight. Species under 500,000 years of development will now benefit from comprehensive cultural and technological supervision, Vazik announced. This directive includes several necessary protections. The list appeared on the display, and Sarah's blood went cold. Cultural advisors would be placed on every human world. These advisors would have the power to approve or reject any changes to human society, education, or traditions. All human art, literature, music, and entertainment would need council approval before being shared. Anything deemed too aggressive or violent would be banned. Human scientific research would require permission from council experts. Projects that might lead to dangerous discoveries would be stopped before they could cause harm. Human military vessels would be restricted to the solar system. No human warships would be allowed beyond Earth's immediate neighborhood. The final requirement made Sarah's hands shake. All humans would undergo genetic optimization to reduce what the directive called violent tendencies and unpredictable behavior patterns. The chamber buzzed with quiet conversations. Some delegates nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable. Sarah stood up. "Elder Vazik, I request permission to speak for humanity." "Of course, young ambassador. We welcome your thoughts." Sarah walked to the speaking platform. She looked around at hundreds of alien faces, some friendly, some cold, some impossible to read. "Honored delegates," she began. "Humanity appreciates the Council's concern for our development. But these restrictions seem excessive. We have been peaceful members of this community for 50 years. We have caused no wars, threatened no species, violated no major treaties." Murmurs rose from the audience. Some sounded supportive. Others did not. "The human record speaks for itself," Vazik replied smoothly. "Wars covering your entire planet. Weapons that could destroy worlds. Environmental damage that nearly made your home uninhabitable. Your species has a documented history of violence and destruction. That history is behind us," Sarah said firmly. "We learned from our mistakes. We grew beyond our violent past. Did you?" asked the Zirani delegate. Sarah felt betrayed. The Zirani were supposed to be humanity's friends, their sponsors into galactic society. Your entertainment still glorifies war. Your literature celebrates conflict. Your games simulate violence for pleasure. Those are stories, Sarah protested. Fiction, art, they do not define who we are now. They reveal who you remain inside, said another delegate. Scratch the surface of human civilization, and the primitive warrior emerges. Sarah looked around the chamber. She could see the vote forming before it was called. Too many species feared human potential. Too many preferred humans weak and controlled. I call for a vote, Vazik announced. All in favor of the Civilization Maturation Directive? Lights began appearing throughout the chamber. Green for yes, red for no. Sarah watched in growing horror as green light after green light flickered on. Humanity's fate was being decided by beings who saw them as dangerous children. The final count was devastating. 834 votes in favor. Only 13 against, humanity and 12 other young species. The directive passes, Vazik announced. Implementation begins immediately. Sarah stood in shock as delegates began filing out of the chamber. Conversations buzzed around her, but the words seemed distant and meaningless. Everything had changed in a single vote. Kavari approached her as the chamber emptied. The Zirani's expression was sad but determined. Sarah, you must understand. This is for your own good. Our own good? Sarah's voice cracked. You just voted to treat us like children who cannot be trusted with their own lives. You advanced too quickly, Kalvari explained. In 50 years, you went from a single world to colonies across dozens of systems. You developed technologies that took other species millennia to master. You solve problems in ways that make no sense to us. And that frightens you. Yes, Kalvari admitted. It frightens many of us. Your species does not think like others. You do not follow predictable patterns. You adapt and change and grow at a rate that seems impossible. Sarah stared at her former friend. So you decided to slow us down. We decided to guide you, to help you mature safely, to protect you from making the mistakes that could destroy everything you have built. And if we refuse, Calvary's expression hardened. Young species who refuse guidance do not remain members of the Council. That evening, Sarah sent an encrypted message to Earth. The technology was human-designed, based on quantum principles the Council scientists said were impossible to crack. It was one of many innovations that humans had developed independently, without asking permission. They want to clip our wings before we learn to fly, she recorded. The directive gives them control over everything we are and everything we might become. They fear our growth, our potential, our refusal to stay in the box they built for us. She paused, looking out at the stars through her window. Request immediate conference with the President and the Colonial Council. We need to discuss our options. All of them. As she finished the message, Sarah thought about the vote. 13 species had stood with humanity against the directive. 13 out of 847. It was not many, but it was something. She encrypted the message and sent it through channels that the Council did not monitor. Another human innovation that supposedly did not exist. The golden age of cooperation was ending. Sarah could feel it like a storm approaching over calm water. The Council had made their choice about humanity's place in the galaxy. Soon, humanity would make their choice about the Council's place in their future. The next few months would determine whether humans remained junior members of someone else's civilization or became the foundation of something entirely new. Sarah looked at the Council seal on her wall. 847 species in perfect harmony. She wondered how many of those species had been forced into harmony, and how many had chosen it freely. Tomorrow, she would begin learning the answer. 6 months after the directive passed, Sarah Chen barely recognized the galaxy she had served. Reports flooded her desk daily from human colonies across dozens of worlds. The news grew worse with each transmission. On New Colorado, cultural advisors had shut down 3 universities for teaching aggressive human history. On Kepler Prime, human parents were being told how to raise their children according to galactic standards. On New Tokyo, the entire entertainment industry had been suspended for producing content that glorified human violence. Sarah read the latest report from Admiral Torres, commander of the Colonial Defense Force. Human military academies were being inspected monthly. Training programs were being rewritten to remove dangerous tactical thinking. Human officers were being ordered to attend sensitivity courses about appropriate force levels in peacekeeping operations. The worst news came from the research stations. Dr. Elizabeth Park, Earth's leading quantum physicist, had been forbidden from continuing her work on faster-than-light communication. The Council claimed such research was beyond human comprehension and potentially destabilizing to galactic society. Similar bans affected artificial intelligence research, biotechnology studies, and advanced engineering projects. Hundreds of human scientists were being reassigned to safer fields like historical analysis and agricultural optimization. Sarah's door chimed. Captain Williams entered, his face grim. "Ambassador, we have a problem. A big one." He handed her a datapad containing an official council communication. Sarah read it twice before the meeting sank in. "They want access to the archives?" she whispered. "Complete access," Williams confirmed. "Every human database, every historical record, every scientific discovery, every military doctrine. They want it all." The human archives represented the complete knowledge of Earth's civilization. Every book ever written, every experiment ever conducted, every lesson ever learned. It contained the history of human warfare, the principles of human strategy, the methods of human innovation that had made them so successful in galactic society. Sarah knew why the Council wanted it. Understanding how humans thought would make controlling them much easier. What was Earth's response? President Martinez told them to go to hell, William said with a slight smile. In more diplomatic language, of course. The next day brought the Council's response. Economic sanctions. Human ships were banned from 30 major trade routes. Human colonies were cut off from galactic banking systems. Medical supplies and advanced technologies stopped flowing to human worlds. Sarah called an emergency meeting with the other 12 species that had voted against the directive. They met in a secure chamber, shielded from Council monitoring. "They are trying to starve us into submission," said Ambassador Thek of the Wanderer clans. Her people were nomadic traders who valued freedom above all else. The same tactics they used against the rebellion of Sector 9. "What happened to that rebellion?" asked the representative from the Crystal Singers. "It lasted 3 years," Thek replied quietly. Then the species involved submitted to enhanced Council oversight. They had no choice. Sarah looked around the table at her allies. 13 species against 834. The odds were impossible. "There might be another option," she said slowly. "What if we stopped trying to change the system from within?" The other delegates stared at her. The idea was almost unthinkable. No species had ever voluntarily left the Galactic Council. To be outside the Council meant being outside galactic civilization itself. "You were talking about independence," said the Vorthan representative. "His species have been Council members for millions of years. That path leads only to isolation and decline, does it?" Sarah asked. "Or does it lead to freedom?" Before anyone could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Sarah's communicator buzzed with an emergency message from the Council leadership. The meeting was called for immediate assembly. Sarah hurried to the main chamber, wondering what new crisis had emerged. She found hundreds of delegates already gathered, their conversations urgent and worried. Elder Vazik stood at the central podium, his ancient face darker than usual. "Fellow beings, we face an unprecedented situation. 3 human military vessels have been detected in the Forbidden Zone beyond Sector 7. They have refused to respond to our communications and continue on their course toward unexplored regions." Sarah felt her blood freeze. The Forbidden Zone was off limits to all Council species. It contained unstable stellar phenomena and potentially hostile alien intelligences. No one was supposed to go there without Council approval. But more importantly, Sarah knew those ships. They were not supposed to exist. Furthermore, Vazik continued, intelligence reports suggest that humans have been conducting unauthorized exploration and research activities in violation of multiple Council treaties. We have evidence of hidden facilities, secret scientific projects, and contact with non-Council species. The chamber erupted in shocked conversations. Sarah sat perfectly still, her mind racing. Somehow, the Council had discovered what humanity had been hiding. "Ambassador Chun," Vazik's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Please explain these violations." Sarah stood slowly. Every eye in the chamber focused on her. She thought about the colonies that were struggling under Council restrictions. She thought about the scientists who could not pursue their research. She thought about the children who would grow up in a galaxy that saw them as dangerous primitives. She thought about those 3 ships in the Forbidden Zone and what their existence really meant. "Elder Vazik," she said clearly, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "I cannot explain activities that I have no knowledge of." It was technically true. She had no specific knowledge of those ships or their mission. But she knew what they represented, a side of humanity that the Council had never seen. Then perhaps, Vazek said coldly, it is time for a more direct approach. The Council hereby demands immediate access to all human records, facilities, and personnel. Any refusal will be considered an act of rebellion against galactic authority. And if we refuse, then humanity will be removed from Council space by whatever means necessary. For the safety of all civilized beings. Sarah looked around the chamber one more time. At the Zerani, who had betrayed their friendship for political safety. At the ancient species, who saw humans as nothing more than dangerous children. At the hundreds of faces that showed no doubt about humanity's place in their ordered galaxy, she thought about Earth. Green and blue and beautiful, full of people who dreamed of touching the stars. She thought about human colonies, where families were building new lives under alien supervision. She thought about human scientists, who were forbidden from asking the questions that burned in their minds. She thought about freedom. You mistake our cooperation for weakness, she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. You mistake our restraint for inability. You have forgotten that humans do not just adapt to environments. We adapt environments to us. The chamber fell silent. Even the elderly species leaned forward to hear her words. You want to see what humanity looks like when we stop trying to fit into your galaxy? You want to know what happens when we stop asking permission to be ourselves? Sarah smiled, and something in that expression made several delegates step backward. You are about to find out. She activated her communicator and spoke words that would echo across the galaxy. This is Ambassador Sarah, Chun of Earth, speaking for all humanity. I hereby announce our immediate withdrawal from the Galactic Council and all associated treaties. Effective now, humans claim the right to determine our own fate. She looked directly at Elder Vazek. We are done being your children. It is time for us to grow up. The chamber exploded into chaos, but Sarah was already walking toward the exit. She had one more message to send, and this one would change everything. Sarah Chun's message reached Earth in 12 hours. The response came back in 70-2. It began with the lights. Every human colony in Council space suddenly blazed with energy signatures that had never appeared on alien sensors. Space stations that had seemed purely civilian revealed massive defensive shields. Mining platforms transformed into military installations. Research facilities activated weapon systems that defied known physics. Admiral Torres watched the displays from his command center on Earth's orbital defense station. His staff worked with calm efficiency, implementing plans that had been decades in the making. Prometheus Network, report status, he called out. All hidden assets active, sir, came the reply. Fleet Group 7 has secured the outer colonies. Fleet Group 3 is moving to intercept Council forces near the Jupiter system. The Titan shipyards are at full production. Torres nodded. The Titan shipyards were supposed to be building civilian transport vessels. Instead, they had been secretly constructing the most advanced warships humanity had ever designed. What about our friends? Torres asked. The Wanderer clans have activated their defense pact, his intelligence officer reported. The Crystal Singers are mobilizing their fleet. All 12 allied species are implementing the withdrawal protocol. Torres smiled grimly. Those 12 species had not just voted against the directive out of principle. They had been secretly coordinating with humanity for years, preparing for this moment. On the main screen, Council fleets were moving to surround human space. Elder Vazek had not wasted time after Sarah's announcement. Hundreds of alien warships were converging on human colonies, expecting to find frightened civilians ready to surrender. They found something else entirely. The first shock came at the Kepler station, humanity's largest mining operation in Council space. A Council enforcement fleet of 30 ships arrived to find the station transformed. What had appeared to be a simple asteroid mining facility now bristled with defensive weapons and energy shields. The fleet commander, a proud member of the Stellar Empire, sent the usual surrender demand. The response came from Captain Lisa Park, formerly a mining supervisor, now revealed as a military officer. Council fleet, you are entering human sovereign space without permission. You have 30 seconds to reverse course before we open fire. The fleet commander laughed. 30 ships against one station? The humans had clearly lost their minds. He ordered the attack. 27 seconds later, his flagship exploded. The human weapons were unlike anything in the Council military databases. Energy beams that bent space itself, missiles that phased through shields, defensive fields that turned enemy fire back on itself. The battle lasted 8 minutes. When it ended, 3 Council ships limped away to report the impossible. A single human station had destroyed 27 advanced warships. Similar scenes played out across human space. Council fleets found human defenses far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. More importantly, they found human tactics completely unpredictable. Human ships fought in ways that violated every principle of galactic warfare. They used their own vessels as weapons, ramming enemy ships at the exact moment their experimental shields created maximum damage. They set traps using fake distress signals and holographic ships. They modified their engines to create gravity wells that pulled enemy fleets into carefully prepared kill zones. But the greatest shock came when the Prometheus network revealed itself. Admiral Torres activated a quantum communicator and sent a message to coordinates that officially did not exist. Prometheus Command, this is Soul Defense. Execute Operation Horizon. The response came from Captain Sarah Kim, commanding a ship that was supposed to be impossible. Her vessel hung in space beyond the galactic rim, in a region the Council claimed was empty. Soul Defense, this is Prometheus 1. We have been waiting for this day. Behind her ship, space filled with lights. Dozens, then hundreds of human vessels emerged from concealment. Ships built in hidden shipyards using resources from planets that did not appear on any Council charts. Crews trained in secret facilities scattered across unexplored systems. The Prometheus network was humanity's greatest secret. While the Council had restricted human expansion, human scouts had been quietly exploring beyond Council space. They had found worlds rich in rare materials. They had contacted species that the Council had either ignored or suppressed. They had built an entirely separate human civilization in the dark between the stars. All units moved to designated positions, Captain Kim ordered. Operation Horizon is now active. The hidden fleet split into groups and jumped toward Council space. Their destination: human colonies under siege. The first Council forces to encounter Prometheus ships could barely believe their sensors. Human vessels moving at speeds that should have been impossible, using jump technology that had no theoretical basis, carrying weapons that violated several laws of physics. Elder Vazik demanded answers from his military commanders. How had humans developed such advanced technology without Council knowledge? Where had they acquired the resources for such a massive secret fleet? Who had taught them these impossible tactics? The answers, when they came, were worse than the questions. Human scientists had not been following Council research guidelines for decades. While publicly cooperating with restrictions, they had been secretly developing completely independent technological paths. They had reverse-engineered alien technology, improved it, and combined it in ways no other species had ever considered. The quantum communication system that connected human colonies was based on theoretical work that Council scientists had declared impossible. The jump drives on human ships used principles that violated established physics. The energy weapons mounted on human vessels drew power from sources that should not have existed. How did we miss this? Vozik demanded from his intelligence chief. Because we were looking for compliance, not innovation, came the bitter reply. We assumed they were following our rules because they told us they were. We never imagined they were building a completely separate technological foundation. The Battle of Kepler Station became a symbol of humanity's new independence. Admiral Sarah Torres, formerly Ambassador Chun's military liaison, commanded the human defense. Her fleet numbered only 12 ships, facing a Council armada of 40 vessels. The Council fleet commander opened communications, expecting a quick surrender. Instead, Admiral Torres appeared on screen, wearing a uniform that no Council member had ever seen. This is Admiral Torres of the Human Defense Force. You are illegally occupying sovereign human territory. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The Council commander, a veteran of 100 campaigns, sneered at the young human. Surrender now, and your species will be treated with appropriate mercy. Torres smiled coldly. Counteroffer. Leave now, and we will let you tell the Council what happened here. The battle began with the Council fleet's overwhelming advantage. 40 ships against 12. Superior numbers, advanced technology, centuries of military experience ended with human victory. Torres had used tactics that came straight from humanity's violent history, adapted for space combat. Her ships fought like wolves, surrounding larger prey and attacking weak points. They used debris from destroyed Council vessels as weapons, turning the battlefield into a maze of obstacles that favored smaller, more maneuverable human ships. Most importantly, they fought with a level of coordination that seemed impossible. Human crews responded to changing situations faster than alien commanders could adapt. They anticipated enemy moves and countered them, before the enemy knew what they were planning. When the last Council ship retreated, Torres sent a message to Elder Vozik himself. You wanted to see what humans were capable of when we stopped trying to fit into your galaxy. This is just the beginning. The Council suddenly faced a nightmare scenario. 13 species had withdrawn from galactic civilizations simultaneously. Human fleets of unknown size were moving freely through space that was supposed to be under Council control. Colonies that had seemed helpless were now defended by technology that Council science could not explain. Worst of all, intelligence reports suggested that humanity had been in contact with species beyond Council space. Species that had been excluded from galactic civilization or had chosen to remain independent. If those species joined the human alliance, the balance of power in the galaxy would shift completely. Emergency sessions convened on every Council world. Military commanders demanded resources for a total war against human rebellion. Scientists begged for access to human technology. Political leaders argued about negotiation versus annihilation. But in his private chambers, Elder Vozik stared at battle reports and realized the truth that terrified him most. Humanity had not been lucky. They had not been helped by unknown allies. They had done this themselves. The species that the Council had seen as dangerous children had grown up in secret. And they had grown up to be something the galaxy had never seen before. 6 months after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Earthship horizon, watching ships from 30 different species arrive at the coordinates she had transmitted. The meeting point was a neutral system far from Council space, where the Independent Systems Alliance would hold its first full assembly dot. It had started with just 13 species. Now, 30 were seriously considering membership. Others were sending observers. The word was spreading. There was an alternative to the Galactic Council's way of doing things. Admiral, we have incoming communications from the Wanderer's Dream, reported her communications officer. Captain Deck wants to confirm the agenda for tomorrow's meeting. Sarah nodded. Deck of the Wanderer clans had become one of humanity's strongest allies. Her people had been trading freely with species outside Council space for generations. They had welcomed the opportunity to do so openly. "Tell her we are ready to begin," and asked Captain Vex to provide the economic reports. Captain Vex represented the Crystal Singers, a species that had been restricted to minor trade routes under Council regulations. Since joining the Alliance, they had become the backbone of a new trade network that spanned regions the Council had never explored. The Alliance had grown because it offered something the Council never could: freedom to develop without oversight. Species that had been classified as too young for advanced technology were now building cities that surpassed anything in Council space. Researchers who had been forbidden from dangerous experiments were making discoveries that revolutionized entire fields of science. Artists and writers who had been censored were creating works that challenged and inspired. Beings across the galaxy, Sarah's personal communicator buzzed. A message from Dr. Elizabeth Park, now head of Alliance Research and Development. "Admiral, the new faster-than-light communication system is ready for testing. We can now send messages across the entire galaxy in real time. The Council's best system takes hours for the same distance." Sarah smiled. Human innovation, freed from Council restrictions, had advanced at an incredible pace. The Alliance now possessed technology that the Council considered impossible. More importantly, they shared it freely among member species. "Admiral," called her tactical officer, "we have a Council fleet approaching. 200 ships, moving at standard patrol speed." Sarah checked the tactical display. The fleet was still outside Alliance territory, but its course would bring it close to several Alliance worlds. This had been happening more often lately. Council fleets probing Alliance defenses, testing response times, gathering intelligence. Are they making any threatening moves? "No, ma'am, just watching." Sarah understood. The Council was learning that military force would not work against the Alliance. Human tactics and Alliance technology had proven superior in every engagement. But the real threat to the Council was not military. It was economic and political. Trade routes that had flowed through Council space for millions of years were now bypassing Council territory entirely. Species that had been loyal Council members for eons were quietly establishing diplomatic relations with Alliance worlds. Scientific breakthroughs that should have been shared with the entire galaxy were now exclusive to Alliance members. The Council was losing relevance. Sarah's door chimed. Lieutenant Commander Williams entered, carrying a secure datapad. "Admiral, we have a problem." "A good problem." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "3 more species have formally requested Alliance membership. The problem is, 2 of them are current Council Inner Circle members." Sarah took the datapad and read the names. The Quantum Architects and the Star Shepherds. Both ancient species, both founding members of the Galactic Council. Both frustrated with Council stagnation and attracted to Alliance innovation. "If they join us," Williams continued, "the Council will lose any credibility claim to represent galactic civilization. They will just be one political organization among many." Sarah thought about the implications. The Alliance had never intended to replace the Council. They had only wanted freedom to develop without interference. But if the Alliance continued to attract Council members, especially senior members, it would fundamentally reshape galactic politics. "What about our principles?" she asked. "We promised the Alliance would never become another Council, forcing our values on unwilling species." "We can honor that," Williams replied. "But we cannot control how other species see us. Success attracts attention." The next day's Alliance Assembly was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in a space station built using combined human engineering and alien artistry. The result was beautiful, functional, and completely unlike Council architecture. Sarah addressed the assembly not as a supreme leader, but as a coordinator. The alliance had no single ruler, no inner circle of elite species. Decisions were made by consensus among equals. Friends and allies, she began. 6 months ago, 13 species chose freedom over security. Today, we gather as 30 independent civilizations united by shared values. We have proven that cooperation does not require control, that progress does not require oversight, that peace does not require submission. The chamber filled with sounds of agreement from 30 different species. Some chirped, some hummed, some created patterns of light. All conveyed the same message. They had found something worth protecting. The economic reports were stunning. Alliance trade had increased by 400%. Scientific research was advancing at rates that defied council predictions. Quality of life on Alliance worlds was rising faster than anyone had thought possible. But the most important report came from Captain Kim of the Prometheus Network. Our deep space scouts have made contact with 47 species beyond council territory, she announced. 31 are interested in alliance membership. 16 prefer independence but want trade relationships. The implications were staggering. The galaxy was much larger and more diverse than the council had ever admitted. Hundreds of species existed beyond council control, many more advanced than anyone suspected. The council had not been governing galactic civilization. They had been governing one small part of it. After the assembly, Sarah walked through the station's observation deck. Through the transparent walls, she could see ships from across the galaxy. Human vessels worked alongside alien designs, creating something entirely new. Her meditation was interrupted by an urgent message from Earth. President Martinez appeared on her personal communicator, his expression serious. Sarah, we have a situation. A council delegation is requesting formal negotiations. They want to meet with Alliance leadership to discuss coexistence. Sarah was not surprised. The council was facing pressure from multiple directions. Their own member species were questioning the value of council membership. Their economy was suffering from reduced trade. Their scientific establishment was falling behind Alliance research. Most importantly, they were discovering that they needed the Alliance more than the Alliance needed them. What are they offering? Sarah asked. Recognition of Alliance sovereignty, mutual defense agreements, open trade between Council and Alliance space, complete end to the Civilization Maturation Directive. Sarah considered the offer. It was everything humanity had wanted 6 months ago. But now, it felt like too little, too late. Tell them we will consider their proposal, she said. But the meeting will be held in Alliance space, under Alliance protection, with Alliance observers. 3 days later, Elder Vazik arrived at Alliance Station with an escort of only 12 ships. It was the smallest council delegation ever to leave. Council space for official negotiations. Sarah met him not in a grand chamber designed to intimidate, but in a simple meeting room with windows that looked out at the busy traffic around the station. She wanted him to see what the Alliance had built. Admiral Chun, Vazik said, his ancient voice carrying new notes of respect. You have accomplished something remarkable. We have accomplished something necessary, Sarah corrected. We proved that there is another way. Vazik nodded slowly. The Council wishes to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Alliance. We propose mutual recognition, shared research agreements, and coordinated exploration of unexplored regions. Sarah studied the elderly alien. Once, his species had ruled entire sectors of space. Now, he sat across from a human asking for partnership instead of demanding submission. What about the species still under Council control? She asked. The young civilizations restricted by your directives? All restrictions will be lifted, Vazik promised. Species will be free to choose their own development paths. And if they choose to join the Alliance instead of remaining with the Council? Vizik was quiet for a long moment. Then we will respect their choice. Sarah looked out at the ships moving past the window. Human vessels, alien designs, and new hybrid craft that combined the best of multiple technologies. All of them flying freely, exploring, trading, growing. Elder Vizik, she said finally, the Alliance was never about destroying the Council. It was about proving that cooperation works better than control. Competition works better than monopoly. Freedom works better than restriction. She turned back to him. The galaxy is big enough for both approaches.